Ah, it looks like we are happening right now. All right, this is the G-Man in the Matterhorn studio with Kel. We're going to be doing episode number 4. It looks like, and some pretty cool stuff.
Awesome.
First of all, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
It's so good to see you, as
It's so
always.
good to see you too. It's been
I just love
we
being
had
in your energy.
we had a little hiccup,
Well-
since we were planning on doing our number 4 podcast.
When don't we have hiccups with
Yeah.
this thing?
Yeah, right. So for those of you that don't know, we were basically rolling this out at the same time. There's a lot of changes going on with the station that we were doing things in. Of course, we don't want to, from a change management standpoint, disrupt, anything on
Exactly.
the FM side.
Exactly.
So we definitely just said, hey, give us a few weeks off. We got some more kind of planning that we can do. And
We had to get the equipment in. We've got this amazing setup, this Rodecaster Pro 2. And
I mean, we got 2 or 3 minutes maybe into this, a couple minutes, and we're just still learning how to stream. Looks like we're gonna.
But look at how quickly, though,
Yeah.
this thing enabled us to get on.
Well,
I mean, I've got to hand it to Rode.
Yes.
I've got to hand it to Rode. This thing is amazing.
Yeah.
This Rodecaster. I haven't looked into the other versions of it, the earlier or quote unquote lower versions of it.
Right.
But this Pro 2 thing, oh my God, worth every penny.
It is crazy.
Worth every penny.
So there's good news and bad news.
Okay.
I guess the bad news is that we haven't had a show, broadcast or produce in about 3 weeks or something like that. But the good news is now, we're set up. We're going to be streaming and
It'll be much easier.
continue to work on our social media and everything, and so yeah, it's going to be great. So
this kind of thing just takes time. Like in our heads, we were done weeks ago,
right?
But the reality is, in the 3D, that things just take time.
Right.
Our brains are out here, and the rest of us are just going, okay, we'll get there when we get there.
Exactly. You know what? I just realized that I forgot to actually do one of my new toys. Speaking of the Rodecaster, so we had a little theme song for the first few that we did. But what do you guys think about this? Makes me think of Sanford and Son.
I am so jamming on this thing.
I swear.
Yes.
It's just remember, we're the G-Man, but codename Grady.
Right.
Fred Sanford's best friend, back in the day. So that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, it is.
And then of course when you say anything, when you say anything that may be funny or something like that, I got something else too. Where is it? I got all kinds of stuff. There it is. The applause. It's kind of a conflict there. We have the applause and the crickets going at the same time. That didn't make sense. So we are. Let's see. Let's get to the good news, I guess. So the good news is that even though we got derailed for a few weeks, we are going to be able to not have to necessarily cut away for commercial breaks right now. With this one, I think maybe we'll go, maybe a little bit down the line.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, hey, everybody, this would be where we're maybe going to a break. And so let's go ahead and take a couple seconds here. I'll cue the music and then we'll come back in after the music's over. So that way we'll kind of have a bed set up in case, they want to insert something on the FM component. So, but anyway, I want to thank everybody that, there's probably not anybody that's listening to the live feed right now because this is kind of thrown together. So, but we are recording this and we'll repost it and upload it. We got let's see, our Facebook page. What's the Facebook page name?
WTM podcast, isn't it?
WTM. Well, that's the link, right?
Hold on a minute.
But we have it as What's the Podcast? I think that the title has to be What's the Podcast. I haven't been on it.
I don't know if I was able to get What's the Matter straight up.
But we do have our YouTube channel. It's What's the Podcast Show, the ampersand, and then What's the Matter? Yes, podcast show. And we have What's the Matter.com. I can't believe
that's amazing.
It's crazy.
That's amazing.
So we are going to be building this out. And another reason why this is actually good that we're doing this is we're going to be getting some components going where if you're out there, you're doing a podcast, if you've never done a podcast, but you want to do a podcast, if you haven't even been born yet, maybe 5 years from now, you'll be doing a podcast. But yeah, we want to put some things together as far as best practices, and again, maybe organize some workshops and just kind of help establish, this this moving trend, towards this type of form of entertainment, education, and
media.
We're supposed
Absolutely.
to somebody, I can't remember if they told me or if I read it somewhere, maybe something on the news, where this area, and for those that don't know, we broadcast from Reno, Nevada. This area in the next 10 years is supposed to get to 1 million in population.
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Wow. So
not going to happen.
Why do you think that's going to not happen?
First of all, we don't have the space.
I'm not saying that
we're logistically limited. We're landlocked.
Yeah.
We're logistically limited by the mountains and the land. We can't sustain that many people.
All right,
stupid. It's a stupid idea and a stupid plan.
I like the way you're
talking about it.
I like the way you think.
It's just not.
Because as a local here,
no.
This show isn't about Reno, but we are very guarded. Locals are very guarded about protecting.
Absolutely, and we could be, and we need to fight against all of this BS that's happened here. That's gotten as bad as it has, and if they keep trying to push this agenda, which is their agenda, this is not the people's agenda. This is not what the people want. This is strictly a government money grab. We have got to stand up and say absolutely freaking not.
Right. That's where, I got to.
Right.
Kind of back up. You have to do that. I'm sorry. I'm going to be playing with these.
Play with it. I love it.
I got to be able to get familiar.
I'm an old Gen X radio head.
Man.
This stuff. I grew up on this stuff.
But you just kind of, probably not on purpose, you went into a little bit of what we're talking about today, because you were obviously a little bit passionate right then about, guarding our biggest little city, right? And you kind of did it, even though you're a beautiful female, you did that with a little bit of masculinity.
Manly way.
Yeah, you did
I'm
that.
I'm very masculinized. I'm well aware of my male-female integration.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. So today on What's the Matter podcast, we are going to be asking what's the matter with masculinity. And so just, kind of explore, first of all, the meaning of it, and kind of our cultural impact, and, how did we get to where we are today? But I guess let's start off like this, some of our discussion points here is defining it, first of all. So, it's kind of like where the definitions are emphasizing, traits like, being stoic, when things are not going your way, or in the face of adversity, so to speak. Of course, strength, you got your, there's, again, just like it says, strength, there's a lot of different strengths. It's not just a physical strength, there's a strength and resolve, and of course, dominance is part of masculinity. And so we're going to contrast them with some modern interpretations, let's put it that way, that, value emotional intelligence and flexibility. So let's first kind of talk about that. Emotional intelligence, that's a psychology term. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, of course, there's an IQ, there's an EQ. And the IQ basically is, again, how much you say and there are, of course, cultural, I guess, disparities, and depending on what kind of IQ test, can be done. But basically, it's how smart you are. When I think of IQ, I think of Albert Einstein,
right?
Versus your
and that's what
emotional
intelligence quotient. It's the measurement of your logistical intelligence and your knowledge.
Say that last part again.
It's IQ stands for intelligence.
Oh yes.
And it's
absolutely,
it's a measurement of your knowledge.
And then EQ is not relating to stereophonics. It is emotional quotient, and there's kind of your results are kind of a measure of your emotional intelligence, which I guess the contrast, from what I understand, is like if you're just way over the top on IQ, then those are kind of like your nerds, guys that are socially awkward, guys or girls that are socially awkward. They just can't, kind of relate or blend in so easily with everybody else. And, of course, an overboard emotional, person is something that nobody wants to have around, right? Because they can't kind of discern. Yeah, they can't wrangle it in. That's a good way of putting it. And so to me, that balance, and from the test that I've taken before, for whatever it's worth, I have a fairly good balance of emotional intelligence, having, I'm not the dumbest or the smartest, probably. I mean, definitely. And, I'm not one, I've cried, before when I'm watching
I hope so.
Maybe The Notebook. I can't remember, but, anyway, but I can kind of bend the knee, to you letting myself, because if you're touched, you're touched. And I don't, run away from crying. In other words,
I would hope not, because that's a biological process. It's a very critical biological process. And it's a cleansing. Tears are cleansing. So when you feel the impulse to cry, that's a chemical response in your body. It's a central nervous system response.
Right.
And when you hold it back, you're holding in that chemical crap storm.
Right.
It's not good.
Man, in a weird way, you segued right into the next point, which is our nature versus nurture. And so, discussing how, back in the day, of course, think about in the 1800s, 1900s, of course, early 1900s, it was just part of life. If you weren't tough, you didn't make it very, very long. There wasn't as many sanctuaries, right, for somebody that needed more emotional nurturing. It's like you either sank or swim, out there. And there wasn't too much pity that society really put on maybe some guys that are kind of soft or have more of a sensitive side.
Or even women.
Or what do you mean? Because they're kind of expected to be soft.
They are, but there have been major. I think we romanticize history in a lot of ways, and think that we've all seen way too many freaking Disney movies here, with showing grandma and baking the cookies with the apron on, and mommy, picking up the little kid when he cries and hurts his knee, and it's okay. I don't think it was anything like that back in the day. I think women were just as tough, just as hard.
Oh, for sure.
Just as
maybe even more.
Maybe even more.
Because they had to sweep dirt floors. Now we have vacuums.
In different ways. The men were out, fighting the battles and bringing home the food and killing the animals and for food. The women were defending the home front.
That's true.
Any threat, there were threats everywhere back then.
That's true.
So, and the men were gone, the women were there. And
so
there wasn't this, I don't think there was this, that came about in the 50s. It's a big part of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And, it's a document that was written in 1954 with the One World Order plan. It's really when they started it, and the document itself was found in 1979 on an IBM computer at Boeing. Somebody had left it, and that's how it got out. But it details pretty much everything that we are living now,
right,
from the 50s.
You mean the destruction of the nuclear family, women's liberation,
women's lib, all of that. But it started with pulling it in first and creating that image, that nurturing, that image of the soft, sweet, nurturing mother who didn't have to work.
Right.
Well, really? I mean, what about Rosie the Riveter?
Rosie the Riveter.
This came out.
Oh, the one where she had her women, we can do it.
Women went into the workforce in assembly, in manufacturing,
right?
While the men were out at war, women were building the bombs.
Yeah.
Women were building the guns and the
bunch of bombshells, building bombs.
Absolutely. So, that all kind of gets wiped out. People forget about that. Oh, that was just a little blip. No, I don't think so. It was then co-opted by the cabal into this. Well, no, women shouldn't have to do that. Let's bring them home, and they can just stay at home and take care of their men and blah blah blah. After men came back and were shattered,
right?
Where they were emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally shattered by their experiences, and were now suffering from all kinds of PTSD on top of everything else.
Right.
That it was an unintended consequence. Now the military-industrial complex has this mess of human beings that we've never had before in modern history.
And that kind of slides into which tool that they used to accomplish this, and it's a combination of media and our TV.
Exactly. That's exactly when, right as things really shifted in 1945 and 1947, when we got access to a whole bunch of technology we didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to, that's a whole nother talk show about going into where it came from and how we got it and all that.
Right.
But that's when things really started to shift as far as computers coming into our technology and broadcast and things like that, where they were really able to see the effect it had on the psyche and how to manipulate it. So all of this is all converging at the same time as they're coming up with this plan on how to basically, it was basically designed for America to suck in Americans into the big plan, because where we go, everyone follows, because we have the highest population of this that are not the highest population, obviously, but that have the exposure to this kind of, have free exposure in many more ways than, say, China or India, that actually do have the largest populations. But as far as America, we were a big experiment,
right? And kind of once again, you're leading into what we talk about, kind of in the next segment. And so at this point, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and play with this a little bit more, and so we're just setting this up in the bed for advertisers. This is G-Man and Kel on What's the Matter podcast. We got some more stuff to talk about masculinity. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right. Hey, this is the G-Man and Kel with What's the Matter podcast, and we are talking about masculinity today. So when we left, we're kind of talking about how can we remember, like, let's go back and again just think back to when I was a kid, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, and talk about how some of the things I can remember when I was, some of my earliest memories, like I'm getting ready to go to kindergarten, and I was a younger one, so I went to kindergarten. You're supposed to be 5, but I was actually 4. And I didn't turn 5 until the school year ended, because it was kind of like, it was when my birthday landed. I don't know how they did it, but anyway, I was a youngster. And so instead of them kind of saying, hey, you're going to learn about the ABCs, let's, the A, B, C, D, doing all that stuff. And the 1, 2, 3s, they were teaching me how to defend myself, how to defend the family honor. My grandpa and dad were like, it's not a matter of if, it's when. You're gonna be getting in fights. It just happens. It's the way that things
Predictive
are out
programming
there.
much?
Oh yeah. So again, just simple.
Wow,
simple farm.
That's a horrible imprint.
Simple farm.
They
people.
did that.
Hey, don't talk stuff about my dad. No,
no, but seriously,
I mean, I'm just trying to tell you the story.
They
So the point is that you can't control who your parents are, how they raised you, and a lot of times it's cyclical.
Yes.
You're just,
that's
they
what
were
I'm
just
saying. It came.
They were raising us with love and
how they were raised,
and that's it. And you don't, of course, process it at the time.
No.
But
and we had no insight like that back then either. We didn't have this kind of.
That's what I'm saying. It just was the way that it was.
Yeah.
And if, however tough things may have been in 1973, they were a lot tougher in 1883 and 1773 and stuff like that. So as far as like any kind of modern day abuses that happen, I mean, it's still, what I got was nothing compared to, say, what some people kind of had to deal with. And so anyway, that's totally another show there. But looking at the point that I was trying to make is that back then at such a young age. What's that?
I didn't mean anything against your dad. I'm just saying.
Oh, no worries.
We had no insight to what a heavy imprint that really becomes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, and stuff like that manifests over generations. But I remember that when I became a parent, there were some things that I kept. Like my sons got spankings, and my oldest daughter, she did not. She got one pretty good one. But our youngest daughter, she didn't get one her whole life, and a lot of people will be able to, you know, they say, well, you can tell too, because she's a little bit spoiled. Well, I think it was, you know, the first three. Well, you know, there's the first three were raised with me in the house, and then the last one was split. You know, and there was one thing that I was not going to do, especially when, you know, there's any kind of custody that could be messed up if you mess up.
Right.
And so I didn't even want to go there, you know, so just, you know, just, and at the same time, you know, she's a beautiful young lady, just expecting her second child here in July 7th. Yeah. She is 20, let's see, 97. So 28. Yeah. She's 28. You know, so, but, you know, the point that I was, I guess, trying to make is just very simply, you know, things are a lot different, you know, when my personal experience growing up with traditional masculine expectations, Gramps in World War II, all of my uncles on my mom's side, you know, Marine, a couple of Army guys, you know, one Air Force. And so, you know, country, guns, hunting, all that stuff. You know, there are just expectations that you just, you know, my son's not going to be a sissy, you know, type of thing. And I could feel that. I could feel that pressure. So there was really no, like, say, room until later, you know, to show any kind of, I guess, you know, emotional
vulnerability.
Yeah. Estrogen based, you know, feminine, you know, just more emotions, you know what I mean? That you're able to let go, you know, if you're not hurt physically, you shouldn't be crying.
Right.
There's no crying in baseball. Right.
Yeah.
I remember
all terrible messages that now we realize now.
In all of my sports, and there was one time where it was crushing. I did cry. We lost by 1 point. It was one of those rival games too. You know, so but now the point is things are different. You know, which is good. You know, because we are more in tune
as humanity.
Yes, we're more in tune, you know, with what's, you know, kind of good and of course inappropriate. And I can't help but think about, say, all the individuals that are in prison, because I used to be a knucklehead and I used to be a rebel and I used to kind of act out to be able to fit in, to kind of be considered one of the cool kids. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's some negative stuff, you know, a lot of stuff I didn't get caught doing, some things I did get caught doing, and I got out of it, you know, because of connections,
and, me too,
you know, and all that stuff. But there are some that don't have those luxuries, and whether you call it white privilege or just being born in the right family or something like that, I can't help but think how many people are in prison and they felt the same way, where they had no emotional outlet
than people
to be,
realize.
and you see what I'm saying? Yeah, because they're being hammered, just like, hey, Vato, you know, one of these days you're going to be in our gang and stuff like that, and just like, you know, being born in a place with parents, a neighborhood that you have no control over. And I can't help but wonder how many of those guys just want to
more than you realize.
Yeah,
more than you realize. There are really good programs, spiritually based, not necessarily religiously spiritually based, but from a different spiritual perspective, that have gone in to the prisons and basically taught these guys about mindfulness and things that they'd never even heard of, much less considered. You know, personal growth, personal development, because no one ever took an interest in their development.
Right.
So they didn't know to take an interest in their own. They were just when you're not shepherded in any way, I won't say raised, because not all of us are always with parents, but when you're not given that structure and mentorship by someone more experienced than you, you mimic.
Yeah.
You can only monkey. You can only follow what you see. That's how humans are. And that's how we learn. So, you know, if these kids had no, you know, as kids had no structure, and either we're getting ignored at home, you know, rejected or whatever, and then they get around these other kids that are in the same situation and they create their own little society called a gang.
Yeah, the Lord of the Flies.
And that trauma and negativity makes them want to strike out because they're not getting their needs met from, you know.
Right. Well, and you don't have that positive role model, because mom and dad if there is mom and dad at home, are so busy making a living by the time they get home,
or not making a living, totally neglecting you, being drug addicts or whatever, and not even thinking about the responsibility of bringing another human life into this world.
Yeah, well, that happens, but the point is, again, they're so busy, whether they're there or not, they're ill-equipped, to, in many, if not most instances, to make this kind of difference. I can remember when I got to kind of like the age of accountability, about, really 24 years old, you're back in school learning about how the mind works. And, I realized that, oh man, the negative things that happened to me weren't my fault.
No.
And they happened.
But they are your responsibility.
And I can't do anything about what happened, but I can draw that line, take control of my life and my direction, and move on from here. But for the people that don't even have somebody, because mine, my realization was in a college classroom, with the lecturer going on. And so that was my role model, or that was my educator in that moment. But how many again, people don't have anything like that, not just while they're being raised, but even after they're adults. Right. And so it comes to a point of desperation. But again, we keep getting off track here when we're talking about masculinity. And so let's kind of like retrace.
That plays into criminal behavior, though.
Yeah.
Trying to prove masculinity in a lot of cases.
Well, no doubt about it. And that's where, like, if we examine, say, the historical, kind of rundown of masculinity, think about like back in the days of Genghis Khan, of course, when, there's, and of course, people
even
are still trying
Egypt.
to, conquer the earth, but you're just engaged in battles and stuff like that. And everybody's like, as far as like ancient warriors, you know what I mean? It was like, even the women back then, I can imagine, they probably didn't have too much attraction toward the girly man. You know what I mean? They needed a real man to provide, fight. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
If that was even,
it was just
expressed.
a different world.
Yeah.
And so now, of course, that's different now. But let's talk about relating to masculinity. Let's talk about how there's such an attention on toxic masculinity.
Right.
So toxic masculinity, why don't you define that? I would say, like, in a quick thing, of the toxic part is that has to do with control
and domination,
lack of say self-esteem, where a person, say, has to be in control,
narcissism,
and all that stuff. So go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, toxic masculinity, and it can be expressed in both men and women. I want to acknowledge that for sure, because so many of us as women, particularly Gen X, have been pulled into playing both roles. And we were the first wave of mass divorce, single motherhood, and men traditionally weren't even able to get custody. I mean, that fight, if a man wanted custody, the only way it was going to happen was if the mother was a complete like loser, deadbeat, drug addict,
abuser,
not, abuser, which was very hard to determine by the court system back then. Now we have a much wider and more broad psychological framework to discern these patterns. So many patterns have emerged now that we are able to pinpoint into spectrum-like conditions. None of them are pinpoint exactly this, exactly that, exactly this measure or whatever, but we have much more, much more nuanced ways of seeing these behaviors and these patterns and what causes them to manifest a certain way, and they're pretty universal.
And you had mentioned the women's lib movement, or we were talking about that. And so how do you think that has had an influence over the evolution of it's masculine roles with women?
It's created a head-to-head conflict because it threatens men. We don't need them. And we're proving it every day. And it hasn't always been that way until, as a matter of fact, until real recently.
See, and that's the thing though. So when you say, like, because that's a trend, right? So
and I mean that
birth rates are down.
I don't
and all
need,
these
I don't
different
literally
things.
don't need them, but
Right, but
as
that's
far
again,
as
that's a thing that's out there.
functionally.
It's a thing that's out there
Sure.
with girls right now,
Sure.
right? They don't need men. But again, if let's say
For
China
the traditional
or Japan came over here and actually was on the ground going through, you know, the country and stuff like that, you know, I can guarantee, just like I say, a homeless woman, you know, unfortunately, when they're on the streets, they kind of seek the refuge of a man to protect them at nighttime. Not all the time, but you can see it.
Yeah.
You know, that's out there. So when women say,
or they
we don't
manipulate
need
men with sex,
that we don't need men,
Mhm.
you know, that's a far-reaching statement.
absolutely.
And I think that
And it's
that
a
needs to be kind of tampered down a little bit.
no
We need each other.
question.
We need each other.
It's
you know,
and what we've done is we've gone from codependency
Mhm.
to independence. We've gone, you know,
Right.
one side of the spectrum to the other,
Right.
to from terrible codependency of women, you know, simpering for men and, you know,
Right.
giving and doing and whatever, to this militant rejection almost
Right.
of, you know, which I myself did.
Mhm.
And that was that I can attribute that directly to my mother. My
Mhm.
mother sat me down at age 7,
Mhm.
got in my face and said, put her finger in my face and said, "Don't you ever, 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 ever depend on a man."
I think that was 16.
Yeah, whatever. You know, I've never. I should go back and count them because I've never actually counted.
I will. When I listen to the show, I'm going to count.
But like literally, and she said, you make sure you have your own job, house, car, money, bank account, credit cards, and then if you want to shack up with some dude, you go right ahead. But up until then, don't you dare depend on a man.
Well, and that's you know, I guess again the term need. You know, let's say like I want to be financially independent, you know, but to say live my entire life and I'm going to be under the mantra of I don't need men, right? And so what that would just seem to just same type of thing if there was a guy that said I don't need women, like women haters
It's a
that
defense
are out
mechanism.
there. Yeah,
it's a defense.
You know,
mechanism.
it just doesn't make any sense to me because again, there's good and there's challenges that both genders have. Nobody's perfect, but I think this the polarization, just our world is just so polarizing. It seems like everything has to, you know, be
we're in
different.
It gets worse before it gets better phase.
Yeah, and it's kind of like from a spiritual standpoint, you know, that we're a long ways away from that. You know, and so again, it gets back to how we're putting information into our mind, what we're putting into our mind. You know, whether it's again just sit around watching news all day, which isn't even news anymore, and not to get too Pollyannish, you know, but as far as like the toxic masculinity, to your point, it can go both ways. Absolutely. You know, but of course, I think by and large, you know, the knuckle draggers, us men, we have to,
you know, who still think that, you know, conquering any woman by having sex with her is a victory, you know, as many women as possible, you know, thinking that sex is a weapon still rather than a union.
Yeah, talk
you know,
about and talk about getting back to the women's lib movement and then with custody and things like that. And then I think that there was a recognition, you know, of the ability to kind of use the legal system against men. And that's
it was the only thing women had at the time. It was, you know,
but it's still wrong.
Absolutely.
It's bad for the kids.
But we have to, I think humans, because of this polarity duality construct we live in, we learn by doing these, you know, flip back things, like where we do one thing and go, oh man, that didn't work. So we go the complete opposite spectrum and go, oh wait, that didn't work either. And then we come back to the middle. And I think that's where we are as a humanity at this point. We've done so much of this flipping over millennia, you know, over eons, that now we are in the migration and coexistence phase. We all know that we need to get somewhere better. Not everybody's going to make it. Not everybody can actually make those changes and make those shifts, but we're aware that they need to be made. That a lot of the things that we were modeled, were taught, have expressed aren't, that may have been valid at some point, but are no longer. And that's evolution. And that's what we have to look at it as, not as fear of change or, oh, it's going to be different now. And it was this way and it was good this way. It was better this way. No, it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
You know, things are constant and so much faster now.
I like it. Hey, I hear the music coming in. You know what that means?
It must mean I better shut up.
Yeah, no, not at all. We're going to hear more from Kel when we come back. We're going to get into, let's see, something about masculinity and how it shows up in relationships and why that matters more than ever. It's G-Man and Kel with What's the Matter podcast. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So far, so good.
Awesome.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is G-Man. Welcome back to What's the Matter podcast. We are here at the Matterhorn in the Reno Town Mall in beautiful Reno, Nevada. We are talking about masculinity today. And next up, Kel, we have, how does masculinity show up in relationship? And, why does that matter now more than ever?
It's been interesting to watch. I 10 years ago, after my last long-term relationship ended, I've never been legally married, but I was common law married to a guy. We were together 16 years. And the whole time I was with him, I said, if anything happens with you and me, I'm done. No more relationships, no more men, no more sex. I'm terrible at this. I'm not going to do it anymore.
That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
How you doing?
I stuck to it.
Oh, good for you.
I was completely celibate, no dates, no online profiles.
For 10 years?
For 10
Holy
years.
guacamole.
Didn't even think about it. And what it did for me was it took out a whole layer of energy that I needed to even consider.
Yeah,
it was kind of nice for a little while.
Have a little bit of more time on your hands, like your thoughts. You think about things
you don't realize.
Yeah,
but you don't realize how much energy, even just thoughts of wanting to be in a partnership or whatever, takes up.
Even just sex in general.
So
takes up a lot.
And that was never a really big consideration for me. My experiences had never been great. my body didn't work right. I could, this and that and the other. So I'm like, not a big deal.
I pulled a hamstring one time trying that.
So then about 8 months ago, I had been online. I've been on Facebook, and I was in this esoteric spiritual group, and I was reading these posts by this dude, and at the time I was really fascinated by him. It seemed like this kind of high level esoteric sort of ancient spiritual wisdom kind of stuff, and a little bit of a poetic flair to it. And I am connected with quite a few people on the spiritual speaking circuit, and thought, wow, this guy's kind of one of them. Like, I wonder why he's not out there, So I wanted to contact him, but I thought, God, he's not going to want to talk to me. Like, he's way above my level with this stuff that he was posting. So I was watching him for about 2 months. Not strictly, not thinking anything romantic. This was strictly just kind of a scientific, research interest.
I don't know, man. It's kind of a form of stalking, but go ahead.
Well, it wasn't stalking. It was just his post would pop up in this group, and I'd see him, and it would come in my feed, and I'd be like, oh, wow, there you go.
Innocent stalking.
Yeah. Like, I
non-intentional.
I never actually went to his page at this point. I was still just seeing the posts pop up in the Robert Edward Grant group.
Okay.
So then he posted this kind of emotional, sort of vulnerable post that was like, I'm all alone. Nobody sees me. I've been, kind of isolated the past, X amount of time, blah, blah, blah. And I was in the middle of kind of a dark night of the soul myself. And it really resonated with me. So I was like, this is my opportunity. So I commented on that post. I know this road can get kind of, long and rough. I'm nowhere on your level, but if you feel like I might be suitable to discuss it with, feel free to contact me. And he did. So we started talking on Messenger, and then switched to WhatsApp and started Zooming. And my whole interest was like, you should have a podcast. Like, let's do a podcast. Do you want to do a podcast? What is anybody working with anybody? Do you have a team? Do you market? This, that, and the other, like strictly business. And within 10 days, he had kind of escalated it. And said things like, I'll never abandon you, said, I love you.
Whoa.
10 days.
And you had never met?
We'd never met in person.
Goodness.
He was overseas. And I was here. And so I am narcissistically abused. My mother was a covert narcissist, and I was just starting to learn about how that manifests in behavior on both sides, on both how the narcissist acts and how the abused responds. So I wasn't catching the love bombing, some of the stuff that was going on. I was like, he was so different. He seemed like this total special unicorn, so different from any other man I'd ever met. And he, and like was like communicating with me on my level, on the level that, just about relationships and
this
things.
Reminds me of that like documentary, like the what was
that
it called?
Twin Flame one?
It wasn't. It was like not a catfishing, but the Tinder. Was it
I
Tinder?
haven't seen that.
Was it the Tinder? There's some again. They
remember vaguely.
This guy would
about
it would fly all over the world, and he basically would move money here and there and kind of put up this lavish lifestyle and stuff like that.
This guy was nothing like that. He was the complete opposite. He was in total victim mode. I've been unemployed for X amount of time. My girlfriend left me because I have no money. Like that.
And you started kind of like giving him some encouragement, and then all of a sudden, then he's kind of like wormed away into
exactly. Like I was like open and vulnerable, and I'm an open book. Like I don't hold back.
So what happened? Did you sleep with him?
Ended up sleeping with him.
Oh my God.
I ended up
I did
going
not mean
over
to get
there.
into
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay.
The bottom line is I broke my sacred vow to myself.
Right.
I broke my 10-year sacred vow.
Right.
And because I had called.
Well, that had to feel good though to get back on the horse again, and some, like so to speak.
It did. Not so much physically, but it was.
It's like riding a bike, huh?
But it was like I was like, wait a minute, this isn't my. This was my mother's program. Like I was doing that to impress her, to make her feel better. She's long gone now. She's been gone for 4 years.
Right.
I don't really feel this way. I'm not a man hater. I don't feel like, I should never depend on a man, blah, blah, blah. I want to be.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Like, I want to be in an actual partnership.
Right.
Not a relationship per se, or a romance or whatever, an actual functional partnership. Not 50-50,
true to goodness
100-100
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like open, honest, vulnerable, building together, like to me, what relationships are supposed to be, which I've never had. All my relationships have been pretty much one-sided where I ran everything. And I was feeling like this wasn't going to be like that. And from our discussions and the way things were online and things he was saying, and the whole time we were online, he, was kind of escalating, and we were, it was romantic. I mean, I could show you all of the texts and messages on WhatsApp and show you our Zoom and stuff like that. So we were making plans to be together, for him to come over here. And something happened where he got himself in a mess of some sort. And he was like, come over here and get me. So I did.
And this is
This
where?
is in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Yeah. He's a Swedish guy. He's not Asian, but he was an expat living in Hong Kong. And so in my mind, it was like this kind of romantic thing, like, I'll go, come get me. Okay. I'm on my way. And, like I'll make this happen. And so I did. And I had proved, like from the get-go, like that I walk my talk. Anything I said I would do, I did, or whatever. And I just assumed, based on, the discussions we were having, that he felt the same way, and it was going to be reciprocal and partnership and blah, blah, blah. And he gets over here and is basically a completely different person, which turned me off immediately, like just shut me down. And I warned him multiple times.
It's like a little Jekyll and Hyde to act.
Pretty much, where basically it suddenly felt like I was going to be doing everything.
So do you think that in hindsight, did he just kind of like use you to get
He finally
get
admitted
over
it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry that happened to you.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not, because he was I had been kind of wallowing in a victim mode stance for a couple of years through this dark night of the soul I was going through as I'm growing and learning and evolving. And it's nothing worse than somebody in heavier victim mode than you to bounce you right out of it. Like this guy, I used him as the mirror he was. And we were mirroring each other. Like we were bringing out the absolute worst traits in each other. And he was throwing it at me and blaming me. And I was using it as fuel. I figured him out in 6 weeks, and it took me 6 months to finally get rid of him. But I finally, after I realized, like, he does not have feeling. He would like kind of lead me on and then slam me again, and it was sort of.
Well, it sounds like I don't know the guy. He sounds like a master at deceit, though.
Oh, total.
Yeah,
he is a complete psychopathic narcissist.
Oh man,
he hits every single trait of both NPD and ASPD all the way down the line, and I didn't know to look for that in the beginning.
I wonder where kind of like in the next point here. Wonder where again people get formed, to kind of take on those habits.
I know his. I know in his case.
Who was his mentor?
L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige. He spent 20 years in Scientology. He wasn't raised. His mother died when he was 1, and his father completely rejected him. Got remarried and started a new family, and so his childhood was a mess, and then he ends up in Scientology for 20 years, and that was a big mess. He escapes it, but did not deprogram. So he still has he doesn't completely reject the whole philosophy. Like he still sees merit in some of the things that like L. Ron Hubbard professed and things like that. And he is basically like a cult leader with no following.
Yeah.
Is his mentality.
It seems like again, there's no science behind this. Maybe there is, but it seems like in general, females have a better support system as far, not, of course, your case may be not specific to your case, right?
My
but
case
in general, you girls, like when there's a breakup, right? You girls rally around each other. Us guys are just like, oh, let's go have a beer, and it's not
stuff it down or
there's
dismiss
not
it.
that.
And the women are like,
because we
break it down.
Our role models, like I said, growing up, are not really, I guess, in tune, with these things that we're talking about. And so what, I guess, comment on this before we go to a little, I guess, semi-break here, discuss, kind of like the role of women in supporting and understanding men's emotional journey when they kind of, again, come from, say, a primitive, if any training at all, to now, like as a young man, 20 to 40 years old, somewhere they have to figure out that they have to meet women in the middle.
Right.
They can't,
and
just
the 20 to 40s
with an iron fist, so to speak, to have any chance with any relationship.
The 20 to 40s are actually doing a much better job, and the information and messages they're getting from the zeitgeist about relationships has shifted dramatically. It's a lot different than Gen X and Boomers. It's a lot different than what we heard and saw in our media, where we saw those stupid 80s rom-coms and dramas and Fatal Attraction and, Valley Girl and all these, so we were getting like this whole wing wang of like one side was how wonderful romance is and how, to be adored and chosen and, cherished by a man. And then you get the flip side, Fatal Attraction, Pacific Heights,
right.
So we're seeing like, what do we believe? How is it really? Is it going to be like this or is it going to be like this?
Right.
And we ended up modeling a lot of that. And a lot of us too, because we are also not just the first wave of divorce, we were the first wave of mass dual parent employment, where we were left on our own a lot, and many were raised by media. They, there's a layer that we mimicked what we saw, like we used actors to learn how to be in the world. So we're modeling like these things that we're seeing in movies in real life, you know, using like snappy one-liners and, you know, thinking that's the way people, you know, really are. We're not seeing it in our experience necessarily, but, you know, we feel, a lot of us felt isolated and kind of different. And so we're going, oh, well, maybe that's how we're supposed to be. And then sort of started modeling all that. Well, it wasn't. It was very bad. It was done for dramatic, you know, for drama, but we're using it as behavior. So now we're getting into all this push-pull and sexualization, and, you know, there was a lot of porn starting to come out then too. Like we started to have access via VHS tapes and things. You could suddenly, you know, sneak into
you didn't have to go down to that,
to the ugly theater, the dirty theater, or the you know, the hole in the wall room. No,
you could bring it into your house. One of those. I you know, San Francisco is supposed to be a great place to go, you know, back in the day.
Yeah. Plato's Retreat in New York.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something always creepy.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Going into an adult theater.
I can't imagine.
You know, I had to get by with Playboy.
Right. But that stuff was starting to come into the mainstream just as we were growing up, and where it hadn't been before.
Right.
So we were highly sexualized. Like that program was heavy on us.
Not even talking about just the natural aspect.
No.
So what do you think? Let's speculate. What do you think the definition of masculinity may? How's it going to evolve in the coming years? What do you think?
I think it is evolving as more of the not so much going back to traditional gender roles per se, as far as cooking, cleaning, sewing, all that crap. It's more of a return to where men are going back to taking the protector provider role. You know, kind of taking that back.
It seems that way.
And seeing, how do we balance it now, where it's not just the man working and providing and protecting, and you know, where it's not just the woman nurturing and raising the kids and cleaning the house, or vice versa. It's not just I'm a housewife, I'm a house father, I'm a
well, especially
stay-at-home dad or whatever.
Of course, wages are not, of course, keeping up with inflation, nowhere near it, and all that stuff. And
no,
so
but male-female wages have there's a parity there now, where there didn't used to be, and women can out-earn men where we didn't used to be able to.
Yeah, but the point is now it's more of a team effort than ever before.
To be.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. I think the militant women thing came about because we were able to get away with being single and self-supporting for a while. We could afford it, and you can't anymore. And that's another program that's being done very deliberately. And there's an interesting dichotomy of messaging in the zeitgeist now too, where there is this strong message of be independent, go it alone, do it on your own, do your own thing. Yet there's this other coupling message that's coming in as well. So there's a strange, and I think it's specifically here in America primarily, where there's this weird like program where they're trying to like separate us, and like,
well, yeah,
you know, like,
I mean, God, like, not just separate us, but like invent other stuff.
Yes. And
now there's a thing I heard this morning called autosexual. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Autosexual. That means that you love yourself. Just like that's what your life is all about, is self-love. And
that's called narcissism.
Well, I mean, we don't
need a new term for that.
Yeah, you could, you know, go in a bunch of different directions on that, but like
kind of onanism, which is, you know, self-sex. But
to kind of wrap this up, let's have you, I want you to, you know, first of all, question and then measure the importance or lack thereof regarding inclusiveness and diverse representations of masculinity in today's and future society. You know, so first of all, I guess question, like, is it important, you know, to have masculinity in both, to be inclusive? I think so.
Both are,
yeah.
It's important to have both masculinity and femininity within each vessel.
That's what I'm saying.
It's called the divine union, and there's all this crap out there now about twin flames and soulmates and all of that, and people thinking that's about physical relationships. It not fully. The ultimate twin flame union is you within yourself integrating your masculinity and femininity, and in your being able to express it coherently in appropriateness and in scale. And that's easier for women than men because of the way masculinity has been portrayed as domination and control, and men being typically physically more dominant.
Right.
It just kind of naturally fell out that way. Now that we've evolved in consciousness and mentality, and have actually witnessed the differences and the ability to have, to play both sides and to be integrated and still be within your identity, where men can express their femininity without it being a sexual thing. That's where a lot of this comes down to. Expressing your masculinity and femininity in most people's minds comes down to sex and sexual representation, both gender and actual the physical act.
Right.
And when you start relating everything just down to that level, you end up kind of in a morass there of you start getting into different debates and different. It goes on into a whole different thing. It's not about sex per se. It's that masculinity and femininity is an energy. It's an expressive energy. We as physical beings have come to express it physically in different ways, but it's really not what it's ultimately about. And it's about being able to understand and accept within yourself that you have both expressions.
Yeah.
And that that's natural. That's
right.
That's not just okay. It's the way we're designed.
It's called balance, people.
Yeah,
it's
harmony.
Balance,
Even
so
it's because it's not always balance is a 50-50, and things aren't always going to be equal. It's more of a flow. Can you maintain the flow when it's higher or lower and not spiral?
I love it. Hey, this is good stuff today, Kel. I love it. Hey, looks like we got another one in the books. You've been listening to What's the Matter podcast today. Masculinity took the center stage. And so I guess to end this up, so whether people are reflecting, questioning, redefining what matters, it really matters that you tuned in with us today, or after we recorded today. But we don't want you to miss our next episode, when we're going to be taking on what's the matter with digital trust.
Yes.
Exploring misinformation, online identities, why skepticism's on the rise. Plus, we may welcome our very first in-studio guest. So,
awesome. And that's going to be an interesting topic next week, because I have been going through digital hell this week as my cell phone died, and then my main laptop broke.
Oh.
And then my router went bad. So I was having connectivity issues.
There's been a lot of that stuff going on around here.
It has made me realize just how entrapped we are with this whole mobile, digital, online paradigm.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about it next time. Let's give ourselves a hand here again. So we're going to be seeing you guys next week. This is the G-Man. And, on
Kel.
behalf of Kel, we want to, show you guys some love. Until next time, see you.